Y'all are looking about as fine as some hogs in the trough.
Ooh.
And the trough is full of slop. Oh. America's sloppiest podcast, the Pod People. Texas's sloppiest podcast.
We are pretty sloppy tonight, boys. It's going to be a sloppy one.
I'm Matisse Van Rossum, and music is my life.
I'm the chili champ, Ben Sheets.
Ooh, and I'm the Lord of the Harvest, a.k.a. I'm that saboteur that's fucking up your house. And this is the Devil's Ball Pit.
Well, we're going to be spending the whole night in the Devil's Ball Pit.
Mm-hmm. And it's greasy.
It's greasy, it's sloppy, it's wet, it's wild. And most importantly, it's big, because everything's bigger in Texas.
Bigger than ever.
Bigger than ever. Cleveland, this was your pick. You picked Texas Chainsaw Massacre, too.
Yes, I did.
Hell yeah.
Fuck yes, I did. And I hope you see why.
Oh, yeah. Well, just a couple of weeks ago, we talked about the terrible 2022 Texas Chainsaw requel that was just god-awful.
Oh, yeah.
But, Cleveland, I thank you and I appreciate you for reminding us that good Texas Chainsaw movies exist.
Boy, howdy, don't they?
Boy, howdy.
Yeah. About two of them.
About two of them
exist.
About two of them that I know of.
That are really good. And then, yeah, you're about out of luck after that. At least, you know what? I haven't seen the 3D one yet. Maybe I love it. Maybe I think it's the best thing I've ever seen. But
no, Texas Chainsaw 3D is bad. But Leatherface Texas Chainsaw 3 is one of Matthew McConaughey's first roles.
I think it's his debut.
His debut.
So...
Yeah.
I'm going to have to see that at some point, because I do love some Matthew McConaughey.
Yeah, I'd be down to watch that one. I've never seen that one. You don't need to see the 3D one.
Well, maybe I don't love Matthew McConaughey. Maybe I just think he's all right.
Well, this movie came out in 1986, 13 years after the original.
That's right.
12, 13 years after the original.
Same director.
Tobe Hooper returns.
Same soundtrack artist, soundtrack.
We have one returning cast member. We have Jim Seedow is back as the patriarch of the Sawyer family. Everyone else has been recast.
Oh yeah, and he'll saw your mom, he'll saw your dad, he'll saw your brother, he'll saw your friends, he'll saw your all of them.
You didn't have to do that.
I didn't.
Well, this movie is tonally the complete opposite of the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre, but in this case, it's not a bad thing. In fact, I think that is ultimately what makes this movie great, is that it's not just trying to do the same thing that the first one did over again, because Tobe Hooper already made a perfect film the first time, so why try to recapture that same lightning in a bottle? Instead, try to capture a different flavor of lightning in a bottle.
Yeah. Well, you know what? I like to think of both these movies are just a delicious big old rack of horror ribs, but one is sauced and one's dry rub. The original's a dry rub movie, you know, but this one, we're fucking lathering on the sauce.
Drowning in
the sauce. But we're not getting lost. Like, we hold true, you know? And that's important. This movie gets pretty fucking sauce.
I was going to say, it depends on your definition of getting lost in the sauce, because I would say that there are parts of this movie that get a little lost in the sauce.
Yeah, but in a good way.
But in a fun way.
In a good way,
In a fun way. I was reading that Tobe Hooper really wanted to, like, hone in on the comedy aspects of this movie, because he intended the original to be funnier than it is, but nobody focused on that because he did the horror part so well. And the movie is so unsettling and disturbing and horrifying that nobody was laughing at it. And so Tobe Hooper said, well, this time they're not going to have a choice. Yeah. They're going to have to laugh at it. And so this one is a totally fucking over-the-top, goofy, literally carnival ride.
Yep. Well, it's just 1 to 2. It's the perfect example of picking either lane. right?
Yeah.
Like, one, they picked the hardcore horror like lane, whether intentionally or not. The comedy in the original Texas Chainsaw is hardly comedy in that, like, it's these horrible people trying to be funny, but that makes it scarier, right? I mean, because it feels very genuine. And so, like, we're going hardcore horror, just purely dry realism and fear. Whereas this one is fucking buck wild. Buck wild.
It's too over the top to be realistic.
Yeah, no, there's nothing real about this movie.
Yeah, so it lets you know right away that, like, this is not the same kind of movie.
It leans in.
Pure excess. And, you know, coming from this film is a canon picture, you know, and canon is all over this movie. Like, it's pure 80s action excess, especially in the second half of the film. And I love kind of recontextualizing the things about Texas Chainsaw, the original, into kind of a different framework and seeing how it works.
There's a lot of repeated sequences in this movie, but they've been given this just budget injection, and they're so baroque, like, and over elaborated. We still get the, like, a final, like, dinner sequence, but wow, are they different?
Yeah.
You know, and the same things happen in that sequence.
You know, it's funny that you say a budget injection, because something that I was thinking about in this movie is that it certainly does have a considerably larger budget than the original, but it somehow feels cheaper to me.
Yeah.
And normally I think that would be a criticism, but I find it charming in this one. Like, it's so ridiculous that it doesn't feel nearly as authentic as the original, which, you know, has such a like level of atmospheric realism. Like, that the house feels like it could exist. You know, they did it on a shoestring budget. And this one, they had a bigger budget, and they could do bigger, grander, goofier set pieces. But the result is that it feels cheaper than the original.
I think a lot of that is also intentional, too. Like,
I think so as well.
Yeah, and, like, at the risk of sounding really pretentious, what it does is the cheapness in this movie, like, is sort of used as a tool to highlight, like, the cheapness of American life, you know, like, of commercialism, of those sorts of things. And again, totally aware of how I sound when saying that, but it is like that.
You're right, though.
Yeah, like that is exactly what they're doing, and I don't think we need to dive too deep into that because the themes are pretty straightforward. Like,
well, I find it very charming too. Like, from a production design standpoint, it almost feels Trauma-esque at times in terms of production design.
Absolutely.
Well, you can tell that they had fun making it.
Yeah.
Know? Once again, it's one of those examples where it's just like every day of shooting, it had to have just been like an absolute hoot.
The Sawyers in this movie have holed up in, like, an abandoned amusement park, kind of Texas Battle Land.
What the fuck?
It's like a sort of, like, theme park that's, like, highlighting
the Civil War.
Well, yeah, all of these various, like, battles of Texas history. I mean, at the beginning, when the guys are, like, driving down the road, like, the college kids, and one of them is, like, shooting the gun out the window, he's shooting all the signs. The signs are, like, advertising Texas Battle Land. It's like, check out this battle, and this battle, and this battle, the Alamo, all this shit. So they've holed up in this, like, this abandoned amusement park. So it feels cheap, but also, like, it's a cheap, hokey amusement park.
Yeah.
You know? So, like, it fits.
One of the things I really love about this film is how it captures Texas and Texas culture.
Yes.
I feel like even more so than the original even does, because the original is so constrained to a small area that it doesn't get, like, the over the topness of it. You know, you don't get the obnoxious people obsessed with the Texas OU football lifestyle the Fry house.
The original, like, even though it's called the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, like, the setting is incidental almost, you know?
Yeah.
Like, it could be set in any sort of rural part of the country. Like, it doesn't...
the rural South very specifically, I think what it does capture really well about Texas is, like, that's the sweltering heat.
The heat, yes.
You know, like the feeling of it, and, like, the overgrown farmhouses and such. Like, that,
Whereas,
it's that underbelly, but it's exclusively that. It doesn't get into any other...
Right, but, you know, you could get the same thing in a film set in Mississippi or Louisiana or Arkansas, you know. Whereas, like, this movie, like, the idea of it being in Texas. is, like, very central. it's very thematic. Like you mentioned, it's set on the weekend of the Texas-Oklahoma Cotton Bowl, the big game. So everybody's partying. There's lots of characters, you know, walking around in cowboy hats, being very stereotypically Texas. The first time we see the father of the Sawyers, he's winning a chili cook-off that is just like the most excessive, sloppy. Like they put a ladle full of chili into the trophy that they give him.
I knew you'd love that.
And he's got like he's like holding it. He's got like this big chili stain on his lapel on his jacket. Yeah, it's just like
rules.
It's fantastic. Yeah, and you know
which means that like everyone at that competition ate human meat. You know, it's
2 years in a row. He won
2 years.
Yes.
You know, it's the secret's in the meat.
And you know, and the setting of Texas battle land too. You know, there's a lot of famous battles from the Civil War and otherwise in Texas. There's a rich history of death and bloodshed in Texas. Like hell, most of the interior of the fun house is like the walls are lined with skulls and bones, and like, yeah, the Sawyers have added some shit to it, but a lot of that shit was just there, you know.
Well, I love that the skull and bones section too, like where they're in the walls, is like a hut that they've built inside of the giant underground area. Like, because you see the outside of it later. I didn't realize that last time. I thought that they like came out of a hallway because it's so rich. There's so much to look at. But this time I caught it.
It's such a huge set,
it's like a skull and bone mud house that they've built inside of this underground carnival cavern. It's so good.
It's so ridiculous.
Fucking good. Yeah.
What I was really struck by watching this movie is this is very obviously like the main impetus for Rob Zombie's House of a Thousand Corpses.
Definitely.
Yeah, like I've seen that movie before. This is my first time seeing this one. I'm like, Jesus Christ. House of a Thousand Corpses just is this movie.
I mean,
it even has Bill Moseley.
Yeah,
Like,
Bill Moseley.
They both have Bill Moseley.
Is doing similar things, and the inspiration is definitely there. From what I've heard, in Halloween 2, his sequel, he actually cast the woman who plays Stretch in this movie.
Oh gosh,
so there's a direct lineage there as well. You know, that inspiration is so clear.
Yeah. I wouldn't be surprised if seeing Bill Moseley in this movie is what prompted Rob Zombie to cast him in House of a Thousand Corpses and then subsequently Devil's Rejects, because like Bill Moseley is so over the top and ridiculous in this movie.
Yeah.
Is he supposed to be the hitchhiker brother from the first one?
Yeah,
is that what that's supposed to be? Okay.
Well, no, not necessarily.
I mean,
From what I understand, he's
like,
supposed to be he's supposed to be like another brother who was a nom at that time, and he's puppeting the dead brother around. Like, that's the impression I was like, he you know, like in the beginning, like he's puppeting him, and then later on he's like talking to him and he calls him brother. Yeah, like it's that he's puppeting him around. And it's not the same one.
Yeah, because I guess fucking the hitchhiker brother gets hit by the truck at the end of the first one. That's right. I forgot about that.
Waist down. I guess how he's puppeting the corpse puppet. Pretty cool.
I didn't catch that.
Yeah, and again, he calls him brother a couple times. And again, it could just be a corpse, you know? And like he could kind of be the same brother. I love the ambiguity of it. Like, but like the story that I weave is that like he was often nom during the events of the first one in the 70s.
Considering how closely this film ties to the first in like very specific certain ways, I think it probably is the brother, just because I think of like the Franklin scene in this movie.
Yeah. Well, the tie-ins are definitely there, but like the I think also like Bill Moseley also, like at least his headcanon I'm pretty sure is different. But that doesn't really mean anything, of course. But like he was like hell-bent on making his own spin-off with Chop Top. An all-American Chainsaw Massacre. Yeah, there's a really good Andrew Wang video about it, like where he breaks the whole thing down. Like it's like there's like only like some rare footage that's ever been found of the movie. Like it was one of those things that like apparently it was like largely shot, but like never released. But the shots that do exist are super low budget. It like an amateur. It doesn't really look like much of anything. But it is really cool. I love the idea. I wish that it had been budgeted. But he actually like encountered like rights issues and stuff. I forget the details. It's been a while since I watched it, but it's a really cool video. Like it breaks it down. But yeah, there was a secret another Texas Chainsaw spinoff, an All-American Massacre, which is a great name. It would have been fun to see what that would have been, with just like featuring Chop Top.
Road tripping across the country.
I don't think Chop Top works on his own.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I agree. I also don't really think that Leatherface works on his own. And, I brought that up in our discussion of Texas Chainsaw 2022. It's like Leatherface is the iconic one.
Sure.
Because of the skin face mask and the chainsaw. But the original movie and this one, it's not about him. It's about the family.
It's about family.
It's really about family.
It actually is,
and
though.
It's so weird to me that, like, all of these more modern Texas Chainsaw remakes, sequels, soft reboots, whatever, only hone in on Leatherface and nothing else. I feel like it's such a missed opportunity.
Well, to quote Drayton Sawyer, like himself, like you have one choice, boy. Sex or the saw.
Sex or the saw.
Sex is, well, nobody knows, but the saw is family. I love that he says nobody knows what sex is.
Yeah.
Like, that's the funniest shit. That's the funniest shit to me.
The saw is family.
The saw is family.
I would argue that Leatherface is really like the least scary part of this movie.
Totally.
In terms of like characters, like Chop Top and the other members of the family are way creepier and way nastier.
I mean, it's kind of the same in the original too. We talked about it a couple weeks ago. Again, like Leatherface is kind of almost a pitiable character. Like he's
pathetic.
He's like barely functional, he's like so mentally ill that he's nonverbal and, childlike. And we see a lot of that in this movie. And once again, they get it right because it's fucking Tobe Hooper again, who created the character, who knows the character. And the Texas Chainsaw remake, Texas Chainsaw 3D, Texas Chainsaw 2022, all of these fucking movies focus only on Leatherface, and they miss the point of the character. Like, he's just a big horny simpleton.
See, and this is another reason why Mandy is so good. Like, Mandy understood all of those things, like, looking back at this era of movies. Like, the cult leader in Mandy is pathetic.
Yes.
The and just finally to bring it up to, like, now you've seen, like, the homage that Mandy is playing to with the chainsaw fight, right?
Sure.
Like, that whole idea of, like, let's find the biggest chainsaw we can find.
Yes.
And then like, at least, like, that's whole Dennis Hopper, he goes to the chainsaw place.
About Dennis Hopper.
Holy shit, yeah. And he's like picking out the biggest chainsaw he can find, and then like two little ones to bring with him as well, because more is better in this movie.
I love the idea of Texas justice being just knowing that these are chainsaw wielding serial killers, so you need to get a chainsaw.
So you gotta fight fire. You gotta fight fire with fire
for a true duel.
That's the best part about it. Is like, turns out Texas justice is wildly inefficient.
Yes. Yes. Man, Dennis Hopper is so good in this movie. He's the perfect casting for this character. He plays Lefty, who is a Texas Ranger, who is the uncle of Sally and Franklin from the original.
Yep.
So he's been spending the last 13 years trying to hunt down Leatherface, which is so much better than Texas Chainsaw 2022, and like Sally.
It's not even comparable.
Sally became a Texas Ranger and spent 50 years hunting Leatherface, whatever.
It's like they didn't watch this movie.
It is, and they probably didn't.
Like, that is exactly why I say that so much in the previous podcast. It, honest to God, is like they never watched this one or the original and just understood what it was about. Like, and the fun that you can have, like, doing one of these movies.
Well, and, like, we hit on it in that episode a little bit, but this one really nails the satire and the satirical elements that the new one misses, because, like, this one is, really making fun of American, but more specifically Texan culture, and kind of the bravado of it, and kind of
the excess.
Excess, exactly.
Well, like,
this movie's all about excess.
On paper, there are good ideas, like in the 2022 one, right?
Sure.
Saying, okay, we're going to do a requel with this franchise, right? And we're going to have it be about, it's still going to be commentary on the heart of Texas, but it's going to be about like the Austinites moving in. It's going to be about like the hipsters like coming into the country and trying to do like a health food thing with it. There's even like commentary on that in this movie, and it's really funny. Like, but so like on paper, like I still think that's a good idea, and they could have done some great things with it.
But again, it's
now we'll
never
never see.
It's the lack of community.
Yeah, and commitment. Like they don't follow through on the punchiness of those jokes like this does. Like this movie, like it leans in so hard when it's telling a joke. You know what it's doing.
2022 doesn't feel like it's trying to be funny.
Right.
It doesn't feel like it's trying to satirize. Like it's
it feels like it is, and it doesn't know how. Like, which is sad. Like,
no,
that's what I found.
No, there's a difference. It doesn't feel like it's trying to satirize. It feels like it's trying to mock. But again, it doesn't quite
it's spiteful,
know.
Isn't it?
It is spiteful, but also it doesn't quite know what its target is. Like where we talked about how its message is kind of confused, whereas this movie it's not spiteful, it's not mocking, it's fun and satirical. And it is about the idea of Texas excess. Everything is bigger. Texas. Everything is bigger and better in Texas, you know?
Oh, yeah.
and
in this case, bigger is, for once, actually better. Or at least it's fun. Like, maybe not better.
It's a different flavor of good.
But it's not badder. And
it's
often,
yeah. I'll give you that one. Bigger is not badder in this case. I hesitate to throw around the term better.
Yeah, compared to the original,
in comparison to the '74 movie, because I think that's one of the greatest films ever made, and better is
it's just delicious apples and delicious oranges.
Yes.
You know? They're both damn tasty.
Pulled pork and ribs are both delicious.
It just
depends on what mood you're in.
Yeah, there's no wrong choice, folks. Yeah.
Yeah, well, and the thing
there is. It's the 2022 one, but...
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, God.
That's
a corn dog, like, next to, like, fucking, like, ribs. No, corn dogs are still tasty.
Corn dogs are good. That's like barbecue tofu.
No, cold Vienna sausages.
Oh, okay, there you go.
There you are. Yeah, it's cold Vienna sausages.
Not prime meat.
Not
at all.
It's
not
all
right.
prime meat.
That's
It's not the
meat.
best cuts. Yeah, that's right.
I will say there are things that I think this movie does better than the first one.
Is that right?
Interesting.
I think
that.
there's more memorable characters in Chop Top and Dennis Hopper, just maybe because they're bigger, but their performances are more memorable to me.
I think they're louder. You can carry on first. I'll
well, like I said, they're bigger and more excessive, but they're also more memorable. And, you know, I Dennis Hopper in particular gives such a batshit performance in this movie.
That's true.
That
especially in the second half, he just absolutely loses his mind once he gets into the Texas battle land.
What's fun, like watching it a second time, I realize like they do a great job of showing all the signs that he's already losing it. Like, in the scene in the hotel when like Stretch first visits him with the tape, like you see him like dissociate multiple times. Like staring at the wall and shit. It's so funny.
Again, like, perfect casting for Dennis Hopper.
Oh my God, yeah. I mean, it was fucking Frank from Blue Velvet as a sheriff, as like a Madden sheriff. You can't beat that. You really can't. It's so funny.
Dual-wielding chainsaws and a 10-gallon hat.
He built holsters for the chainsaws.
He built holsters for his chainsaws.
It's so good.
I love the scene where he goes to buy the chainsaws.
Oh my God, yes. That scene is so fucking funny. The way that the guy who owns the shop goes from nervous to like entertained, like watching him, like when he's like picking out the chainsaws, he's kind of like pointing him at the shopkeeper, and he's kind of like, "Oh, what the fuck is going on?"
Well, he's like cutting up invisible enemies, and like the shopkeeper
swinging around like a sword.
Yeah, but the shopkeeper's like right next to him, and like almost gets like kind of bumped a couple of times, and like he's like really like who the fuck is this guy coming into my store.
He's kind of like nervous, but then he's like,
then Dennis Hopper just puts a fucking wad of cash on the table, like doesn't count it out or anything. So like he's probably like buying like the equivalent of like 6 chainsaws. Like it's like a whole wad of cash. So like the guy has all the reason in the world to be happy, and that's the whole like theme of the film, right? Like they keep getting away with selling the meat because like these people are willing to pay anything for this product. Like it's all commentary on capitalism. And this plays into that, like he just puts the money down and he's not worried about if this guy is the Texas Chainsaw Killer or not. Cause like there's sort of that implication there, right? Like anyone can be the Texas Chainsaw Killers.
Yeah.
Like they're out on the loose still. They're a folk legend at this point.
Dennis Hopper comes in behaving very strange.
Cutting up invisible people in front of this guy. Like he could be the guy or whatever, but then he just puts a whole wad of cash in front of him. It doesn't matter.
Well, and then he tells him, go outside and test him out. He's got he's got a huge log out front of the store
and you see all the marks, so they've already been cutting into
for
it.
people testing the chainsaws, and
that's
Dennis
good world
Hopper
building.
He just goes absolutely like buck wild on this thing with one of the chainsaws. It keeps cutting back to like a close up of the shopkeeper. He's like grinning and he's kind of like getting off on it a little bit.
He says something really funny like, "Ooh, holy banana" or something. Like, "Ooh, holy banana!" Like,
on that subject,
or like good sweet banana or something like that.
Hopper walks in, he's like on the phone with somebody.
You're meaner than a sting bat.
Yeah, he says you're meaner than a sting bat, Seal.
Seal, yeah, a sting bat seal. Because, he doesn't say comma. Like, you guess that it might be a comma there. Like, and I agree. I think there is. But, like, the way he delivers it is like, you're meaner than a sting bat seal. Seal? You're meaner than a sting bat seal? And it's like, wait, is he...
Well, the thing is...
What does that mean?
Whether the comma is there or not, it doesn't make it any clearer what's going on.
I don't know much about baseball. Is a sting bat... Is that something?
No.
I don't think so.
I don't think so either.
I don't know much
Absolutely
about
not.
baseball.
I don't know about baseball. I don't know. There's a lot of maneuvers and stuff. It's a complicated sport that I'm unaware of, I'll be honest. So, like, maybe a sting bat is a maneuver. I don't know. But, like,
maybe it's a Texas thing. Maybe they got them sting bats down there.
Damn, what if this movie was called The Texas Sting Bat Massacre?
Whoa. Big
Seal. Yeah, so it's just like, he didn't say dingbat. He didn't. He said sting-bat, right?
I mean, his accent's pretty thick, so, like, maybe it was supposed to be dingbat.
We're from the South. I've never...
It does sound like stingbat.
It sounded like stingbat. That doesn't make any sense.
Stingbat,
and like, and then Seal? Like, what? Okay, is he talking to someone named Seal?
Is he talking to...
maybe Lucille?
Is he talking to the singer Seal?
Yeah.
From a Rose Seal?
Chris from a Rose? Like, or is it... I almost said Chris from a Rose.
Chris from a Rose.
Damn, that's actually a good name for like a TV series. Anyway, so...
No, it's not.
It's not?
No.
Okay. Everybody hates Raymond, Chris from a Rose.
Well, you made a really good point about how it's really all about capitalism. Like, that wad of cash is really telling, but also like when Dennis Hopper comes in to face the family, the dad keeps trying to offer him cash to go away.
Just to buy him out.
Yeah.
And then when he's hiding under the table while Dennis Hopper and Leatherface are having their chainsaw fight, he's talking about how the small business owner always gets screwed over. Earlier he's yelling about how about taxes and how politicians and celebrities don't have to pay taxes. Why does he do?
Yeah, the rafters are starting to come down a little bit, and he doesn't know why. He says, they're always trying to fuck you with these property taxes.
Which is wild because I assumed that they had just that they were squatting in this abandoned amusement
Well, they are
park.
because property taxes. Right?
No, if he's complaining about property taxes, that means he owns it.
Yeah.
That means he owns the land.
Which
and
is
paying
funnier,
property tax, which is way more confusing. Yeah. But it is funnier that instead of them
he's got the money,
instead of them just like hiding out in this place because they're on the run, they have bought this abandoned amusement park.
They make good chili.
And maybe that chili is really good.
Prime meat.
Yeah, they're thriving off the chili empire, clearly.
Yeah.
And that's why he has plenty of money and plenty of money to spend.
I guess so.
That's part of the satire in capitalism. Like, no one really cares where the meat is coming from. No one asks. As long as it tastes good. Like,
as long as it's delicious.
They're happy and they'll
And you know what? They're right, because if the meat is delicious, I'm not asking where it came from.
Hungry boy.
Hungry boy. It's ultimately unimportant, but the movie starts with like a similar like title crawl, like the first one does, with a narrated title crawl. In 1973, 5 college students were murdered in the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. But they're talking about how after Sally escaped in the first one, that the police were never able to find the house that she escaped from. And like I said, ultimately this is unimportant, but that's fucking ridiculous to me, because it's literally right behind the house that Sally's family owns. The abandoned house where they went to hang out was like her grandparents' house, and the Sawyer's house is literally in the backyard. It's just behind.
I have 2 theories. I have 2 theories here.
The house is magical and it disappeared.
No, that's pretty great. Let's write a sequel. Theory 1, they literally took apart the house and moved it, along with everything else that they owned.
Come on.
Theory 2, I didn't say it was practical. Theory 2, they blew it up because they own dynamite, and we know this. That's my theory, is they blew up the house.
Maybe they blew up the house.
But they got rid of the evidence.
They would have found the rubble.
But they took Franklin with them.
Yeah, we got it. We do have to mention that they took Franklin with them.
Yeah, and you know what? On that note, Franklin, memorable is fuck hair. I know you were just saying more memorable. You weren't saying that it's not, but like the first movie, what I find about the characters is like they are pretty memorable still. Like Franklin's like walking around like chewing a sausage the whole time, which is very good.
He's not walking around. He's rolling.
He is rolling around. My bad. But like he's going around like chewing on a sausage the whole time, and there's some fun character bits, and like everything with Leatherface and the family. The grandpa in the original is like wearing a corpse, like, and that sequence where you think it's a corpse and then you realize no, there's a person under there is really spooky.
I don't think there's a person under there. I think he's just so old that he looks like a corpse.
No, you see lips like under the corpse. Like,
no,
don't you?
No. That's just, Grandpa's just so old that when you first see him, you think he's a corpse. The horrifying thing is that he's still alive when they bring him down.
Yeah, I thought he was wearing a corpse too. I don't know. It's been a long
the
time.
mask is it's if anything, it's that the mask is maybe kind of cheap in the original.
Instead of person is wearing it.
But it is supposed to be like he's not wearing anybody. Like that's just him. Old as shit.
I see.
That's another thing that feels a little bit cheaper to me in this movie is Grandpa's back in this, but I don't think the makeup is as good as in the original. He looks more decrepit and ancient in the original.
I think that the makeup is more in this movie. It looks more done. Like I think that they spent longer and more money on like the makeup here for Grandpa, but like it's more cartoony and fake looking.
Yeah.
Well, what I think it is like in the first movie he was very dry, and almost dusty, where in this one he's kind of moist and wet.
Everything's pretty moist and wet in this one. Although I will say, they did shoot this in Texas. We see at the end of the credits all the different places in Texas they shot. But I will say this movie does not feel as like hot as the original. It doesn't have the same kind of atmospheric texture. It's got a different kind of texture to it, but it doesn't feel as like sweltering and just like humid and sweaty.
It doesn't really feel like it's about that as much either.
And it's totally a different intention. Absolutely.
Yeah, especially the carnival. It still feels kind of smelly as a whole.
Oh yeah, it feels smelly for sure. All the characters feel smelly, definitely, no doubt about that.
Sweaty. It's a sweaty place.
Yes.
We keep mentioning the Franklin scene and then getting diverted.
Let's do it.
Yes, it's one of the best examples of like blatant fan service, but in an amazing manner.
is at one point...
Well, it's so stupid it transcends.
Yeah, exactly.
Dennis Hopper is going through this fun house for like 45 minutes, just like cutting beams, trying to bring the structure of the place down, which he never does. No. Because I would assume that the beams are decorative.
Yeah, that's the joke, right? Right, yeah, they're in a mine.
They're not
in like
they're in a fake mine.
Yeah, it's a carnival mine. Like it's
they're
for like a minecart ride.
Mm-hmm.
It's not for like actually holding up the building. So he's going along trying to like cut down the devil's playground, like destroy hell.
Because he's completely lost his mind. But at one point he finds Franklin, because I guess the Sawyers for some reason brought him with them when they fled. Don't know why, but he finds a skeleton in a wheelchair covered in cobwebs. It's still holding the flashlight.
I'm amazed they didn't put a sausage in its mouth.
What I love is like when he touches it, like the hand like presses the button on the flashlight and it turns on for a second and then the battery dies.
Like that was the last bit of his soul leaving, you know? Like
yeah, I just love the idea that Sally got away in the original and they had to like up and flee because they knew the cops were coming, and so they just picked up Franklin in his wheelchair, flashlight and all, and just took him with them. And then just left him in some corner in this abandoned funhouse.
Well, think about it, right?
To
like
decay.
Texas is a big state, right?
Yep, that's true.
Now we know that they're a cannibal family, and that they up and moved a pretty great distance. So what they did
they bring him along for
They took the kid's
vittles?
van, because we know that they had a whole bunch of cars in the backyard so they could fix the van. They took the van, they blew up the house, and took Franklin along as like their road snack.
As a road snack.
Yeah,
Okay.
and then they left him there when they got there. Because they had to have been in this place for 14 years because they did a lot of work.
Yeah, they did a lot of work, and also Franklin is covered in cobwebs, so he's obviously been sitting there for a very long time.
Yeah. So I like that. I think that's my theory. That's my game theory. They use Franklin as a road snack along the way.
It's funny that they didn't take him out of his wheelchair though.
They're like wheeling the food around.
Dead body.
He still has the flashlight and everything. That's the funny part, is that they took the wheelchair and all and didn't even take the flashlight out of his hand. They just took him as is.
When Dennis Hopper is going through the funhouse, there's a great sequence where he cuts through a portrait of, I think it's Davy Crockett, and a bunch
King
of guts
of the Wild Frontier
fall out.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Well, he walks up and he says this like really terrible like carnival mural of some Texas battle. Yeah,
I think
it's like,
it is Davy Crockett.
He's got like the cap, right?
Yeah.
But like a bit of blood oozes out of the mouth. You know, and it's like, oh, is there just like a ton of like meat or something behind the wall? Like, what's going on? And he kicks the base of it. And yeah, just like a shitload of meat and
Just
people
guts.
bits. Yeah, like just pour out of the wall. Like, so great. You know, it's like,
Well,
oh my God.
that's what sets him off, trying to bring the whole place down.
It's the
devil's playground. It's so funny because like when he starts doing that, there's like 30 minutes left in the movie, and it just like keeps cutting back to like Stretch and her whole plight of, you know, being captured, and the whole thing where Leatherface finds her in the meat shack and puts LG's face on her, and puts the cowboy hat on, and then it's just like every now and then it'll just cut back to Dennis Hopper like running through some hallway screaming, like cutting through like purely decorative support beams, and then it'll just cut away from him for like 10 minutes, and then it'll cut back to him later. It's just like he's spending so much time doing this.
Well, he's like actually screaming and like cutting down like parts of this building, and
nobody notices
with a
he's
super
there
loud
for
chainsaw
for such a long
time.
time.
The theme park is so big that no one even realizes he's there, and it's so funny. It's such a good bit. Like, yeah, he's just going South Playground and like cutting through things, and no one hears him. No one even notices that he's there. Like a child throwing a temper tantrum. tantrum. It's so good. Let's move back a little bit. I do want to talk about Stretch and how much I like their character. Stretch is our protagonist of the film. She is a radio host. She is the one who first hears the callers in who get murdered via car phone. At the beginning with the puppeted brother on the bridge. It's a great sequence. The guy with the eyeball, like reflective, like goof glasses.
The goofy glasses,
great.
yeah.
And so they're doing they're calling in, and they hear the whole event. And her and LG are going out and about, doing their thing. And we get that wonderful shot of LG like building a literal house made of French fries.
The nastiest looking French fries I've ever seen.
Greasy, the fry house, and he's just he's
like the dregs that you pull out, that you sift out of the fryer at the end of the night. I've worked in enough kitchens to like pull my fair share of those fucking overcooked burnt fry bits out of the fryer. That's what those fries look like. They do not look appetizing at all.
Yeah, and he's just built like a.
But he has built a full
log
house
cabin
with a chimney. He's pouring like gravy down the chimney.
Yeah, just an excess of nasty like food, and I love it. Yeah, it really just sums up the whole movie.
Again, bigger is better.
More. Yeah, this isn't a house of cards. This is a house of greasy fries.
A house of French fries and gravy.
Yeah, like
chili.
Yeah, I guess poutine. I don't know what's going on with that, but this is Texas, so no poutine. But I really like Stretch's character, like radio host.
Yeah.
She makes a lot of good calls, and she's a really fun mirror for the audience, like being caught in this haunted house ride. The actress does an incredible job of like showing pretty earnest panic. Like whenever like she's trying to like flit from place to place, so like the chainsaw, like the sawyers are like moving around her, and she's trying to slowly make her way out of the place. Like the panic is really genuine. Like when she's like in the pipe, and she's kind of putting her hands up, like she almost can't take it anymore, like having to like duck back again into this other place. Like she's clearly at beyond wit's end at that point, and it feels really real and genuine.
I think her characterization is good. What I think is weird in this movie is Leatherface getting really horny for her all the time.
Yeah.
I know this is a canon film.
Yes.
So once again, it's a canon film, but I kind of dig those sequences.
It's sleazy.
It's definitely sleazy,
but at the same time, I kind of like it too, because like it brings this it brings a bit of humanity to Leatherface, because it's like he, when he and Bill Moseley like go to the radio station to kill her because she's been playing the tape of them killing the other people on the air, Leatherface doesn't kill her because he's got a crush on her.
Yeah.
Because he thinks she's pretty.
Yeah.
And like, I mean, it's sleazy, like where he's like running the chainsaw like up her inner thigh, like onto her crotch, and he's doing a lot of like phallic sort of like thrusting motions with the chainsaw. Like it is sleazy and gross. Like it's 80s sleaze personified, but at the same time it's like he does let her go because he doesn't want to kill her because she's pretty. And later when he finds her in the fun house, he tries to help her again. He wants to dance with her. He gives her a face mask,
so she can be Mrs. Texas Chainsaw.
So she can be Mrs. Leatherface, and it's like he is that's how Leatherface should be. He's innocent, and innocent's the wrong word, but he's childlike.
Yeah, he's childlike.
He's childlike, He's not evil because it's inherent to him. He does evil things because his family is evil.
Yes.
And they tell him to do these things. It's what he knows.
Yeah, and there could have been a good boy.
But he does want a girlfriend, He just wants a girlfriend.
But he also doesn't understand what it is, like, too, which is interesting. And really horrifying. But I like how Stretch has to like get out of that situation, and it is sleazy, but also I don't feel like they're hypersexualizing it for like the sake of they're doing it for horror. Like we're supposed to feel like we're being like taken advantage of in some capacity too, and it's terrifying.
Yeah,
I think that's a pretty strong saving grace for it, and I think it's helped it age. Like and especially like in the long lineup of like canon films, and like how like they really are for like they're exploitative, and I feel like this is almost it kind of comes back around, like it is still exploitative for sure, but like it's making a point with it, like it's using it for a purpose other than just gratuity.
Well,
right?
It's sleazy, but they stop short of having Leatherface rape.
No, God, yeah, they don't.
Which is something that I feel like a modern Texas Chainsaw would do for
or a worse 80s one, or 70s one,
of shock value,
or another canon movie would do that from that same era. There's so many movies that like canon films like that are sleazy as all hell. There's an argument to be made for it for sure.
It's exploitation in the genre definition, but it doesn't really feel exploitative, I don't think.
No, because again, it has utility.
It's sleazy, but it's not too bad.
I mean, if anything, it's still pretty funny at times.
Yeah, for sure. Horny Leatherface is pretty funny, honestly.
Yeah. Well, it's great too, because like the big joke is that like LG, like her co-host on the radio station, is also like down bad. Like he's like, oh, you want to I can get a shake for you later, and she's like, LG, like clearly like she's like, oh, you, and he's like, God damn it, like he's just trying to get some.
Yeah.
And so he goes out to get like fucking lattes or some shit, or whatever the Texas equivalent is, and something at Buc-ee's or whatever, and he goes out, and that's when they show up. The brothers show up again, and then Leatherface kind of takes on that same role as being down bad, and Leatherface hasn't really been exposed to like the outer world and what these things mean. How the family views sex is very funny to me. Like, because again, like the dad, like he says, like, sex as well, nobody knows. And like he almost tries to give Leatherface like a birds and the bees talk there. Like he's never really given Leatherface or explained that to him, when he says that like it's a trap or whatever. And
it's not easy trying to give him a talk. He's trying to convince him as like, oh man, pussy ain't worth it. It's about family. Mm-hmm. The Saw is family.
Yeah.
Before we move away from the all the stuff at the radio station, we should talk about how Bill Moseley's character is introduced in that scene.
Proper iconic.
Yeah, it's fucking that's maybe my favorite scene in the movie is the introduction of Chop Top in that scene. It's like the middle of the night, Stretch is putting some music on. She goes out into like the lobby, and Chop Top is just there, and he plays it off like he's a fan. He keeps saying, music is my life. Like, can I make a request? You play something by Iron Butterfly. That's heavy. That's the heavy shit. In a Vita da Gata. That's real heavy, man. My favorite detail of that scene is he's wearing this sort of like this black like bowl cut wig. We don't know it's a wig at that point, but he's got a metal coat hanger that he is continually lighting. He's heating up the end of it with a lighter and then scratching at his head and then licking the end of it.
Yeah. And there's a part towards the end, like, because like Leatherface comes in and he accidentally bops him on the metal plate instead. Yes. And he's recovering, and he just take like, now that his wig is off and we see him for like the monster.
Well, yeah, that's the reveal, is that he knocks the wig off, and we see that what he's been scratching at is he just has a metal plate on his head, which we learn is
it's like gangrenous around the edges.
Yeah, and that's what he's been scratching at, is like the skin, the flesh around the metal plate.
What I like is that like he keeps referring back to Nam, and he keeps singing about Nam Land.
Yes.
But I like to think that maybe he didn't actually even go to Nam, and that like just the dad got angry at some point and bopped him in the head and told him he got it in Nam.
Could be.
Or like, like something silly like that. Because like the timeline doesn't also like entirely line up. It's really fun to me. And again, too, if it is the brother, like when he was hit by the truck, or whatever. But like here's the thing, it can't be the brother hit by the truck, because like you see his head get pulverized. Like you see his head explode when the tire runs over it in the first one.
No, you
right?
don't. No, you're thinking of a different movie. The first one's never that gratuitous.
Really?
I mean, you see him get like fucking pancaked by the truck.
He gets pancaked.
But you don't.
He's dead.
I mean, you don't see his head get crushed or anything. I mean, yeah, I think you're right. I think he's probably dead. Like, I think
Like, it can't be the same brother, right?
it's confusing because they both kind of have like the birthmark on their face, which is why I was confused about it. But like, yeah, he does. The brother does get like fucking flattened by the truck in the first one, and I like the idea that Bill Moseley's character was in Nam during the events of the first one.
Honestly, like, it's a win either way. Like, if it is the same brother, it's funny as shit. And if it's like, brother off in Nam, or it's just like somebody else was hitting the head with a hammer.
Because I mean, if it is the same brother, then I mean, the head wound is most likely from getting pancaked by the fucking truck.
Right.
You know?
It's like in horror, like,
and he just thought that he was in Nam because he got fucking hit by a semi.
Right. It's like
it's fun. It's fun any way you look at it.
Right. Like horror and comedy share this in common, right? Like funny ambiguity and horror ambiguity is where like all answers are scary or all answers are funny. Yeah. And there's all answers are funny. Like, don't worry about, like, you can actually like not worry about it or not think about it. Because, you know, I get kind of tired when people say like, oh, don't think about it, it's a movie, you know, and it's like, well, it's my job. But like here, like, it's the kind of thing where it's you don't have to, because like, it's fun regardless.
Yeah, I mean, it's all about intention. It's like, if it's not meant to be realistic, like if it's not meant to be like hard realism, then shut your brain off and don't think about it. Enjoy the ride. But if it's presenting itself seriously and then it doesn't make sense, then just telling you to turn your brain off doesn't work there. You know, it's all about like it all comes with the territory. What is the tone of the film?
Most definitely.
And this movie is for sure a turn your brain off and don't think about it. Don't think about the fact that even though the Sawyer's house was right behind Sally's family house in the first one, that the cops couldn't find the house. Like, don't think about that shit. Don't think about who Bill Moseley's character is supposed to be. It doesn't fucking matter. It just matters that he's there.
And he's part of the family. I love him just walking around with his metal skull plate, and you know, that's Stretch uses that against him later with a lamp. She picks up a lamp and breaks it and then sticks the socket onto his metal plate and electrocutes him. I thought that was really clever.
Yeah, because again, like, Stretch is resourceful. You know, she uses every out that she can take. And
I hate that they named her Stretch, though.
I love it.
It's like it's like the horniest name they could have given.
She's a radio host. Yeah, she's, you know,
she's a shock jock radio host, but then like, it's not even just like her radio persona. Like, she tells Dennis Hopper, it's like, oh, you can call me Stretch.
Well, no. Like Stretch is also like this is gonna sound real stupid, but it's like a gender neutral term. Like, you call guys Stretch too. Like, it's like that's an old like Southern thing. Hey, Stretch.
Wait.
Like, you've never heard that?
Really? No.
Yes, that's an old term. You're stretching to make ends meet. You're stretching to, you know, like, you got long arms. You're stretchy. You know, like, that's. You've never heard someone call that before. You've never heard someone call someone stretchy like that.
I've heard of Stretch.
I'm telling you, it's a term.
Stretch Armstrong.
No, like, not Mr. Fantastic bullshit. I just mean, like he's stretchy. You've never heard someone say that. Like, come on.
No.
God, I've heard so many people say that.
Where?
Like, old people. It's an old people thing. Like, they say, yeah, he's stretchy. He's skinny. He's gangly. Yeah, like, he's stretchy. You've never heard someone call someone stretchy before?
Never.
No.
That's weird to me.
That is such a Southern thing.
It definitely is.
I grew up in the same place that Cleveland did. What are you talking about?
I have heard that term.
I'm just as Southern as Cleveland is.
Stretchy, yeah, he's stretchy. He's a string bean. Like,
I've
skinny.
heard a string bean.
Yeah, it's the same thing.
It's not.
It is.
You're telling me it is, but I've heard one and I've never heard the other.
Well, just happenstance. You haven't heard it. It's a thing.
But how does it apply to her?
I don't know.
Because she has long arms.
Yeah.
No. She has average arms for a person her size.
I mean, I think for her it is like a...
She's not particularly tall.
I think
she's not like gangly or anything.
I mean,
why is she called Stretch, Cleveland?
I mean, probably for sexual reasons.
Yeah. So I'm right.
Yeah.
So what's your point?
That it's also that. I was just making an observation. I think it's fun. People also call people stretch sometimes in the South. It's a Southern thing.
I don't believe you.
It's Texas. It's the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. They're doing Texas things.
Yeah.
You call, hey, stretch. You've never heard that. I swear to God, it's
this
a
is
thing.
Gaslighting.
It's not. I wouldn't do that to you.
This is the definition of gaslighting.
All right, I'm going to fucking Google. Y'all can, yeah. No, it's Stretch Armstrong is a joke because it is a thing that people call people stuff.
No, because Stretch Armstrong
Because he's stretchy. I know that.
because it was a toy.
Yeah.
It was an old
That you
toy where you
stretch.
stretch his arms and legs. He was rubbery. That's why they called him Stretch Armstrong. Okay, so let's talk about the dinner scene.
Yeah.
Because I will admit I have some mixed feelings about how this is handled in this movie. I generally like it, but there's a part of me that feels like it is recalling the first movie a little bit too heavily in a way that like leads me to make the kind of comparisons that I don't want to make in the context of this movie.
Well, what's interesting is this is directed by Tobe Hooper as well, right?
Right.
So, like, if this was another director doing that same thing under the guise of Texas Chainsaw 2, I would have groaned. But the fact that he's doing his own material again, recontextualized,
That's what ultimately saves it.
yeah, I
That's
think
what
that
ultimately saves it.
gives it a pass for me. And, you know, the fact that Dennis Hopper comes in and saves the day at the end kind of makes it unique and different.
Sure.
in its
Well,
own way.
it becomes something very different. I mean, it leads to Dennis Hopper and Leatherface having a chainsaw fight, and that's shit that I love. And I agree with you because it's Tobe Hooper referencing his own material. That's why ultimately I think it's okay. I agree with you. If it was somebody else just doing it, it would be ripping off. But at the same time, because it retreads the dinner scene of the original so exactly, it does still invite the side-by-side comparisons in a way that I feel like, at least for me, it kind of hurts it a little bit, just because the dinner scene in the first one is such like a masterpiece of horror and fear and atmosphere. And this one is just like, I mean, it's the intention is totally different.
Yeah.
But like in this movie, it is just the same thing, but more. The table is bigger. The chairs are made entirely of bone instead of just lined with bone. You know, they bring Grandpa back out, but instead of being on a wheelchair, they bring him out on like a rickshaw because Grandpa likes to go fast.
It's like a palanquin.
Yeah.
It's like a bone palanquin.
But they run him out because Grandpa likes to go fast, right?
Yeah.
And you know, they do the same thing where they have her like bent over the tub and they're putting the hammer in Grandpa's hand. He's trying to hit her, but he keeps fumbling the hammer. But it goes on much longer in this movie.
Well,
it is just like everything about it is the same but more. And I get that that's the point.
Yeah.
And I think it's okay.
I think it's one of the few circumstances where it is. Like, and it's again why I adore this movie so much is it sort of flies in the face of that opinion I usually have about other films. But it's you bring up a really good point there because they do it a lot, and that is they stretch out so many scenes in this movie.
Everything's elongated.
Yeah, it's brought out
again. They
it's
hold on everything so much longer.
It's almost Greasy Strangler-esque. Scenes just go on, and like people are just screaming and screaming and screaming, and bad things are happening.
Where Bill Moseley's hitting LG over the head with the hammer, they just keep dragging that out. When he's gotten his wig knocked off, like they just hold on. I feel like Bill Moseley's improvising a lot of that because they just kept the camera rolling and never called cut, you know? And again, like this is, I think, the purpose. Like this is all intentional. It is all supposed to. It's about excess, so it's all elongated. stretched.
Oh, by the way, I looked it up. Yeah, apparently it's a common last name.
Last name?
Yeah.
But it's not her last name in this movie.
Search
in
me.
the credits, it's a nickname.
Yeah.
Because got her first and last name, and then.
Yeah, it was a cursory search. I didn't dig deep, but
Maybe.
So what you're saying is that you made it up.
no, I've heard people call people that. I swear to God.
Maybe it's her nickname because it's her last name as well as her first name.
But it's not.
Stretch.
Stretch.
Anyway, there's just so much to love, I think. But no, I love the shot where she's knocked out, like after, like Leatherface gets the talk. She's knocked out and she wakes up and the camera's right in front of her. And it just slowly starts pulling back down the table before the family arrives. And you just see like the Baroque levels of special effects here, like all of these bone chairs and creepy meat dishes on the table, and
Big bottle of ketchup,
a big bottle of like all American Heinz ketchup, and like you can see like crazy stringed lights all over the background, and this family shows up. And then the camera keeps pulling back, and you get this whole fucking cavern of wild, like bone chandeliers and bone ladders and bone sculptures and bone everything. And it's insane.
Extreme excess.
It's the moment where I thought, like, this is the horror equivalent of Mad Max 1 to Beyond Thunderdome. Right, the original Mad Max is really down to earth.
Yeah,
it's an apocalyptic film, but like it's near apocalyptic. Like there's some motorcycle chases. That's about as crazy as it gets, and some cool ramp shots for sure. But then by the time we get to Beyond Thunderdome, we have these elaborate matte paintings and sequences, and people are like the Thunderdome itself is like they're on like high wires, like flying around with is it chainsaws? Like isn't it? I
haven't seen Beyond Thunderdome in forever.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that your comparison is apt. I'll pull it back a little bit
director.
and not go so far as Beyond Thunderdome, but compare Mad Max to Road Warrior from 1 to 2, just like this one is. And I think that is a good analogy because it is kind of a similar intention. Where I think it differs is I think that undoubtedly the Road Warrior is better than Mad Max 1 by like a pretty significant margin. So whereas in Texas Chainsaw 2, I don't think you can say that necessarily.
The reason I go straight to Thunderdome and I skip Mad Max 2 is because like Mad Max 2 I think is the perfect middle ground, and it does a really good job of transitioning between like the down to earth stuff and the wild stuff. Like the wild stuff is just like how crazy the cars are, the crazy raiders and whatnot. But
the wild stuff is not the problem with Beyond Thunderdome. It's the Lost Boys shit.
No, I agree. But like but 3 is the one where they do like epic matte paintings and like big miniature sets of the cities and things, and like it's where they really ramp up the budget. And I feel like they kind of like the Texas Chainsaw movies just kind of skip the middle and they just go straight into like the crazy matte painting wild sets and stuff,
I think it's an apt comparison. I think another comparison you could make is Evil Dead to Evil Dead 2.
Oh yeah.
Same kind of story, just recontextualized and turned from pure horror to horror comedy.
Well, and once again there's Army of Darkness, which goes even more into comedy. Like Army of Darkness really leans into that. Tobe Hooper didn't need like a middle ground. He just figured it out, and he knew what he wanted. He hit it hard with a good budget.
Yeah, he knew exactly what he wanted. He said, "This time I'm gonna do it funny. This time I'm gonna make it funny for real."
Perfect use of budget too. Like I wouldn't change a thing. The special effects are incredible. I feel silly even saying I wouldn't change a thing. Like from my small perspective, compared to like such a great film. There's nothing that you could make to me better about it. Like it hits all the right levels. I wouldn't want anything different.
Yeah, I don't know if I necessarily would either. Just I think the only place where it strays for me really is when it starts comparing itself a little bit too closely to the original. I think that those comparisons are while I get the point behind them, it's just like, ooh, you're getting so close to like just like a different type of masterpiece. Like, you're not trying to be that, so don't invite too many comparisons.
Interesting. Yeah.
That's personal preference, though. I mean, sure. I will say, you know, like that flies out the window as soon as Dennis Hopper shows up and he and Leatherface have their chainsaw fight. You know, I think it's funny that multiple times you have talked about problems with Texas Chainsaw Remake and 2022.
Oh, no, I know where you're going with this.
Turning Leatherface into Darth Vader. You make the Darth Vader comparison specifically,
yes.
And this film doesn't do that. This film handles Leatherface correctly. However, the chainsaw fight,
it's very Star Wars.
It's very Star Wars.
Yeah, and if anything,
I thought that was funny.
He does still kind of play the same role, right? Like he is sort of the lackey to the Emperor father. Like even and they are like at like the control room of the Death Star, you know, where like the Emperor is running the galaxy.
In this one,
it's a meat galaxy instead. Like, no, I do agree.
They handle Leatherface's character correctly, but they literally do a Darth Vader in this one.
Well, see, Darth Vader
1-to-1
is the ultimate villain. Like, Darth Vader represents control and evil, and that, you know, even he can be redeemed, though. And it is kind of funny because they kind of tease redemption with Leatherface in this movie. But I
mean, he's the most redeemable member of the family for sure.
Of course. But you know, Vader is like iconically like a knight, you know, like a black knight. Like he is you know, like an evil samurai. Like he represents power. Yeah. Like he's a big fucking robot man with a red glowing sword. Like he's a scary machine of evil. And Leatherface is still pathetic as all hell in this movie, but they do a swashbuckler bit.
Yeah,
they do
for sure.
But I think it's almost more of an homage to like the Goonies, you know, like and like swashbuckling, like Errol Flynn kind of stuff. Like, to me, like if I had to summarize like the film that captures the most similar spirit to this movie, like with the elaborate set design, like it'd probably be the Goonies. Like, I feel like this is a hard R-rated Goonies. It's a violent, bloody adventure film.
I can see that.
Yeah. Like it, you know, like where they kind of do like the same like set piece to set piece thing that adventure movies do, but instead of to the haunted house ride. I adore that. Just the sets in general to me just reminded me of like that same era of Spielberg. And yeah, like it rules. It fucking rules. But yeah, it is very Star Warsy. Like they do a lightsaber duel for sure.
It's epic. I like that just ends because the father is hiding under the table and he has a grenade and he's pulled the pin and then the chainsaw goes through the table and cuts him and makes him drop
he gets the grenade from one of the corpses that's just sitting on the table and he pulls it down. He calls him like fucko or something.
Nubbins is what he calls it. Nubbins.
Come here, Nubbins. Yeah.
Come here, Nubbins. And he pulls a grenade out that he's been hiding in there. But yeah, the chainsaw goes through the table and cuts him, making him drop the grenade. So he and Leatherface and Dennis Hopper all are, well, it happens off screen, so I guess we don't know for sure, but presumably they're all killed in the grenade explosion. Bill Moseley escapes because he's chasing Stretch. They have a great little fight climbing up to the top of like this tower where they've created like a shrine to their dead grandmother.
Well, and they do a bit like they're worshiping her earlier in the film, like when they're at the dinner. You know, they say like, "Oh, great grandma in heaven above," and they mean it literally. She's up the hill.
Yeah, she's up in the
tower. She's in their iteration of heaven.
She's enthroned on like a big bone throne, and she's holding a bone throne, and she's holding a chainsaw. And, you know, Stretch grabs the chainsaw and uses it to kill Bill Moseley.
You know, my favorite bit of like set design in that is her wrinkly grandma titties. Like they're really well made.
Still there.
Yeah, like
there
I love
after all those years.
Yeah, like just hanging out. Like it's really like someone had to like make those. You know, like Tom
Savini, probably.
Tom Savini's job there.
We didn't even mention that Tom Savini is the makeup effects artist for this movie. And Jesus Christ.
There are just countless like incredible makeup sequences. One of the best is like early, like when they attacked the boys on the car and they saw the one guy's head off and it's like squirting. We get that wonderful shot from behind, you know, with the guy's hands up in the air, like still quivering as his head's been sawed off. Like there's so many good shots.
When LG turns out to still be alive after he's been partially skinned.
Oh yeah, his rib cage looks so good.
His rib cage is just open.
I love it. Just
got
lies down and just goes, oh
shit, it dies.
And dies.
Well, I love how she takes his face off because Leatherface
Tries to put it back
and
on
she
him.
just puts it back on and then like puts his cowboy hat like on his chest, like respectfully. That was great. But we need to wrap up, but we can't not mention that the film ends with yet another homage to the original, where after she's killed, Bill Moseley, Stretch has her chainsaw, and she does the Leatherface dance at the top of the tower
in a mad
as the camera
craze.
pulls out. Yeah,
like she's lost it.
Triumphant.
And it's great because in a single shot you get that sort of that same revelation that horror movies love to have, where it's like they've gotten out of it but now they've become it.
Yeah,
you know, and it's like, and so right at the end, like she has survived, she's made it through, but she's been tainted by it, and like she's gone mad.
She's got the same kind of mania that Sally does at the end of the first one, you know, who's laughing madly in the back of the pickup truck covered in blood as she's driving away. She knows she's gotten away, as, you know, Leatherface
she won.
Spins in rage, you know, in the street. But this kind of combines the two of them, you know, into Stretch in this one,
which is so
where
good.
she's, you know, she's liberated, she's free, you know, but also like she has become the beast, kind of. Yeah.
Well, the quote, you know, like it's Spielberg Lucas movies. It's like poetry. It rhymes.
It's like poetry. It rhymes. Time to rate.
Yes.
Cleve, this was your
5
pick,
out of
so
5. Easy 5 out of 5 for me. I already said it. I wouldn't change a thing. It's hilarious. It's horrifying. It's fun. It's a goddamn theme park ride, and it's really fucking well made. I found myself like a third of the way into the film, like not even that far into it, like my cheek muscles were getting tired from smiling. This movie brings me so much joy. I can't not give it a 5 out of 5. It's easy.
Yeah, I mean, this is one of my favorite horror sequels, and an example of how to do a sequel to a masterpiece. Like, if you have to make a sequel to a movie that's already perfect or really great, don't do the same thing. Do something completely different, because at least it won't be the same but slightly worse.
Yeah.
I have to respect this movie a lot. I don't think it's quite as good as the original, but it is still an excellent movie and one that everyone should check out. I'm going to give it a strong 4.5 out of 5.
Yeah, I'm with you, Ben. I'm going to give it a 4.5 out of 5 as well. I also don't think it's quite as strong as the original. I mean, it tries to do something completely different and largely succeeds. And really, for me, what keeps it from being a 5 out of 5 is when Tobe Hooper flies a little too close to his own son. You know, I think you're absolutely right. Like, this is an example of how to do a horror sequel correctly when the original is a masterpiece. Do a completely different tone, do something completely different, make it a completely different beast. And there are just a couple of times where this movie does the same thing, kind of. And that keeps it from being as perfect as the original, but still a very strong 4.5 out of 5. So that'll give Texas Chainsaw 2 an average of 4.7 out of 5.
Solid. Go watch it. It's great.
Definitely go watch it.
Yeah.
Next week, Ben, it's your pick.
Yeah.
What have you chosen for
us? The new film X is coming out soon, the new Ty West movie. Seems like sort of a 70s Texas Chainsaw throwback in its own respect. But
X.
because of that being a Ty West joint, I wanted to cover a horror sequel that was directed by Ty West, and that is Cabin Fever 2. Sequel to the Golden Pod Cabin Fever.
Yes.
We'll see if
Give that a Golden Pod?
Yeah.
Wow.
I mean,
I've seen it again since I don't know if I'd give it 5 stars.
What?
I love
We're not
the movie,
going to relitigate
but
this
we're gonna.
now.
Well, what's next week?
We're not going to relitigate this now. But that's funny because the original
It's a great
Texas
movie. I just want to
Chainsaw,
give it 5 stars.
the original Texas Chainsaw was also a Golden Pod, and now we've followed it up.
We'll
with,
see if they decide to do something completely different,
I
or
can't.
just do the same thing but worse.
I can't see myself giving the Texas Chainsaw 2 not 5 stars, but Cabin Fever 5 stars. But yeah, that's just me. We'll come back to this next week. Cliffhanger.
All right. Well, yeah. Cabin Fever 2 next week. Sponsor time.
It's right. It is sponsor time. And from what I understand, both you and Ben have now given your blood to the sponsor shelf.
Yes.
Made offerings.
You've made offerings, and so now I must give mine in return.
Oh, Lord.
This week is brought to you by Enron 2. Now, better than Enron 1. Enron 2?
Isn't that just Web3 and NFTs? Isn't that just
damn,
Enron
you're
2?
right.
Oh, shit. Yeah. It's just the housing market all over again. All right, well, there you go. This week is brought to you by Enron 2.
Perfect for Texas Chainsaw 2 in the year of the sequel.
That's right.
Thanks, Enron 2. Well, that'll do it for us this week. If you like the show, leave us a 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts. You can support us on Patreon at patreon.com/podpeoplepod. Big shout out, as always, to our honorary pod boys, Sam Simon and Sarah Morris. We love and appreciate you guys. Follow us on Twitter at podpeoplepod and check out our Letterboxd at letterboxd.com/podpeoplepod, where you'll find a list of all the films we've talked about on the show with our average ratings and links to those reviews. You can follow me on Twitter at SomeSpookySnake.
I'm on Twitter at Mr. Sheets.
Yeah, I'm occasionally tweeting out tidbits and cool shit on Light Arc Studio as we put out progress on It Stares Back, though I've been kind of taking a little break from Twitter lately. I don't need to explain why. It's Twitter. And then
Twitter's rough these days, man.
Yeah, it's been rough for a minute. Just too much psychic damage. I mean,
it's always been rough.
I've been taking a break from Twitter. And
particularly bad right now.
Yeah, and so much of it doesn't really translate to sales. But anyway, it's mostly just devs talking to devs, you know, like from what I found. But that's a whole other thing. Anywho, where you can find me though is on dreadxp.com, putting out all sorts of cool stuff. As of the time this is coming out, we have fucking merch now, and I worked on it. I help make some of this merch. So I'm not normally one for merch, but I got a Sucker for Love poster, and it is gorgeous. I wanted to get my hands on it, see how it looked myself. I set up the printing for it, and it is really fucking nice. So go to dreadxp.com, go get a Sucker for Love poster. It's Lynetta in all of her beauty, and it's really well printed. Just something you can explain to the in-laws when they come over, why you have a squid waifu on your wall. But I would recommend it. And lots of other cool posters as well, and T-shirts, and all sorts of fun things. So yeah, merchandising. That's my theme this week. That's it for me.
All right. Thanks for listening. Next week, we're locked back up in the cabin, and we have the fever. But until then, we have the meats.
In a garden of Peter, honey, don't you know that I'm loving you? In a garden of Peter, baby, don't you know that I'll always be true? Oh, won't you come with me?